The alien queen questioned me about her daughter, and my words stopped her cold. But nothing in his years of work as a linguist and envoy could have prepared him for the grandeur and strangeness of the Zalarian Empire. The massive starship that had brought him to the Queen's world glided silently over an ocean of shimmering metal, its surface reflecting the pale light of a distant sun. He had been chosen not because of his military skill or strength, but because he could understand languages, human and alien alike. And perhaps, more importantly, he could understand emotion, nuance, and unspoken thought. As the doors to the throne room parted, Ethan felt a wave of awe. The chamber stretched endlessly, a vast space with walls that seemed alive, pulsing softly with color. Patterns shifted and danced across the surfaces, like moving murals that depicted unknown worlds and civilizations. The air carried a strange scent, faintly metallic but oddly comforting. The courtiers and advisors who lined the edges of the room were unlike any beings Ethan had ever seen. Their bodies shimmered with translucent skin, revealing complex structures beneath, and their eyes glowed faintly in shifting hues. Each movement was precise, graceful, and deliberate, as if choreographed. At the far end of the hall, seated on a throne that appeared to float just above the ground, was the queen herself. She was immense, not just in size but in presence. Her iridescent skin shifted in color with every subtle movement, shimmering from deep violet to a silver blue that seemed to hold the light of distant stars. Her eyes, large and luminous, studied Ethan with a sharpness that felt almost physical. There was intelligence there, yes, but also something heavier, an expectation that weighed on him before he even had a chance to speak. Ethan swallowed hard. The stories he had read about the Zalarian Empire did not do justice to the reality. They were known across several systems for their intellect, their strict hierarchies, and their ruthlessness when crossed. And yet, here he was, standing before the most powerful Zalarian alive, a human diplomat in a world far beyond the understanding of his people. "You are Ethan Cross," the Queen said, her voice echoing in a way that made the air itself seem to hum. It was not loud, but it carried authority that no human voice could match. "You have traveled across the stars to stand here, and yet I wonder, do you know why?" Ethan's mind raced. He had prepared for greetings, for introductions, for discussions of trade, science, even peace treaties. But this piercing gaze and direct inquiry was different. It felt like she was reaching inside his mind. I believe I am here because you wish to understand something about your daughter," Ethan replied carefully, his words chosen with precision. He could feel the Queen's attention sharpen. She did not nod, did not shift, but the faint shimmer around her seemed to pulse in response. "You are correct," she said, her voice smooth as liquid metal. "Liara is missing, and I must know, why did she vanish? What did she seek?" Ethan took a slow breath. He had not expected to be questioned directly about the princess. The stories he had read about alien royalty always painted a distant figure, a being to negotiate with but not confront. Yet here was the mother of the missing princess, speaking directly to him and expecting an answer that he might not even know. "I do not know the details," Ethan said honestly. "I have not seen her since she left on her mission. But I am willing to help you find her in any way I can." The Queen's luminous eyes narrowed slightly. There was a moment of silence, so long that Ethan wondered if it was deliberate, a test of patience or courage. The courtiers around her made no sound, their glowing forms motionless, yet Ethan felt their awareness like a tide pressing against him. "You claim honesty," the Queen said finally, her voice softer but no less commanding. "Yet you are human. Your species is unpredictable. I must understand why I should trust your words." Ethan forced a calmness he did not entirely feel. Trust was not given lightly in his own world, and he knew it would be even rarer here. "I understand," he said, "and I do not expect you to trust me immediately. But humans have a strength you may not have encountered, our ability to adapt, to understand, and to act with intention. I will not lie to you, and I will not mislead you. That is my promise." The queen tilted her head, a motion that seemed both curious and skeptical. Ethan noticed a faint ripple in the air, like a vibration, that seemed to react to her attention. He realized the Xylarian perception went far beyond what humans could see. They might sense thoughts, emotions, even intentions as clearly as humans saw light. It was both frightening and fascinating. "Your species," she said slowly, "has survived in spite of weakness, in spite of obstacles that others would crumble before. That is notable, but survival alone does not merit trust. Tell me, human, what is it that makes you different?" Ethan considered this. The answer he gave had to be true and yet compelling. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing against him like gravity. "We value connection," he said finally. "We make mistakes, we stumble, but we learn. We protect what we care for, and we fight for what is right, even when it seems impossible. That is what makes us human. That is what allows us to face challenges that others might flee from. That is why I am here, to help, because it is in our nature to try, even when the odds are against us." The queen remained silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, but not as a ruler to a subject, rather as a mother seeking understanding. "Liara is clever, resourceful, and strong. She is my daughter, and yet I see a reflection of my own curiosity, my own restlessness in her actions. I fear she has gone where even I cannot follow. And yet, you speak of human determination and connection. Can these qualities, you say, aid me in retrieving my daughter?" Ethan nodded. "I do not know the full details, but I believe we can find her. And even if I am only a small part of the solution, I promise to do everything I can. Humans may be small compared to your empire, but our strength lies in our will, our creativity, and our ability to understand one another. Those are tools I bring to you now." The queen's eyes flickered, and for the first time, Ethan thought he saw something almost vulnerable. He did not dare relax, but he noted the subtle shift. Perhaps the first barrier of suspicion had been breached. "You will accompany my counsel," she said. "They will determine your role in this matter. But know this, one misstep, one false word, and you will not leave this chamber alive." Ethan swallowed, nodding. Fear prickled at the edge of his consciousness, but he kept his composure. He had known the risks. Diplomacy at this scale, among beings whose intelligence dwarfed his own, was dangerous. But retreat was not an option. He had learned long ago that courage was not the absence of fear, but action despite it. The council that followed was unlike any advisory body Ethan had imagined. Each member radiated intelligence and authority, their movements synchronized like the cogs of a machine. Their questions were precise, probing, sometimes almost painfully insightful. They asked about human technology, communication methods, and even how humans perceived morality and loyalty. Ethan answered with care, knowing that every word would be weighed and measured. As hours passed, he began to notice patterns in their questioning. The Xylarians were not just interested in the location of the princess. They were testing him, testing humans. They wanted to see whether a single human could navigate their logic, hold composure under pressure, and offer insight where even their own kind might fail. By the end of the first day, Ethan felt exhausted, yet invigorated. He had not yet solved the mystery of Princess Liara, but he had earned a modicum of respect. The queen had watched him closely throughout, her presence always a silent pressure on his shoulders, and now she seemed thoughtful. Before he was allowed to rest, she spoke once more. "Tomorrow, you will accompany an exploration unit. You will observe, you will advise, and you will speak only when spoken to, unless I deem your insight necessary. Do you understand, human?" "I understand," Ethan replied, voice steady. Inside, he felt the familiar spark of determination that had carried him through countless challenges. This was unlike anything he had faced, but he would not falter. Humanity had endured, thrived, and grown through adversity. Perhaps here in the court of an alien queen, he could prove that once again. The chamber's doors closed behind him, and the soft pulse of the walls dimmed. Ethan was left alone with his thoughts, yet he felt a strange sense of anticipation. He did not yet know what awaited him or how his journey would unfold, but he knew one thing clearly: humans were underestimated. And underestimated humans had a habit of surprising even the most powerful of beings. Ethan allowed himself a brief smile. He would need all of his skill, courage, and insight in the days to come. And perhaps, just perhaps, he would find a way to bring a missing princess home, not through force, but through understanding, empathy, and the uniquely human ability to see what others overlooked. And so the first day ended in the throne world of the Zalarian Empire. Ethan Cross, a single human in a galaxy of extraordinary beings, had survived the initial test. The true challenge, finding Princess Liara and earning the Queen's full trust, was only beginning. But as he stared out into the shimmering expanse of the alien world, he felt the faint thrill of possibility. Humanity had a place here, and he intended to prove it. Ethan awoke to the soft hum of the chamber. Though he had slept only a few hours, the throne room's events lingered in his mind like vivid shadows. He knew that today would be far more dangerous than the initial interview. The Queen's words echoed in his head. "You will observe, you will advise, and you will speak only when spoken to, unless I deem your insight necessary." The weight of those words settled like armor around his chest. He stepped into the observation hall, a space adjacent to the Queen's chamber. Here, the Zalarians conducted their investigations. A fleet of explorers was ready, their vessels sleek and silent, hovering over a vast landscape of jagged mountains and luminous forests. Ethan could barely comprehend the scale. Even the smallest trees glowed faintly, casting long, moving shadows that shifted in the alien wind. The planet itself seemed alive, as if it were aware of every step he took. "Human," a voice called, calm but carrying authority. Ethan turned to see Captain Vaylor, the leader of the exploration unit. The captain's skin shimmered with a deep green tint, and his eyes glowed with a quiet intelligence. He was tall, angular, and precise in movement, every step deliberate. "You will accompany us today. Observe carefully, speak only when asked. Our mission is to locate Princess Liara." Ethan nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and tension. "Understood." His own pulse quickened as he followed them to the launch bay. The ships were unlike anything he had seen. Smooth, reflective surfaces with no visible seams, powered by energy that seemed to hum through the very air. He could feel it vibrating beneath his fingertips when he brushed against one. As they prepared for launch, Ethan noticed the subtle ways the Zalarians communicated. Tiny gestures of the hand, shifts in posture, even changes in skin color. They spoke to each other in signals humans could barely perceive. Yet, through observation, Ethan began to understand. These were creatures of logic, pattern, and subtlety, yet they also possessed deep emotion, a combination that could be terrifying when directed at a threat. The launch was swift and silent. Ethan clutched the side rail of the ship as it rose into the sky, leaving the glowing forests behind. The ship moved not with engines, but almost as if the air itself carried it forward. Below, mountains stretched into jagged spires, rivers of light winding through valleys. It was beautiful, otherworldly, and terrifying all at once. They landed in a valley that glowed with bioluminescent plants. The air was crisp, filled with scents unfamiliar to human senses. Ethan felt his senses heighten, as if the environment demanded alertness. The Zalarians moved without hesitation, scanning the surroundings, analyzing everything with their advanced sensors and instincts. Captain Vaylor approached Ethan. "You will observe the signals of life. Princess Liara's signature may be faint, but humans are unpredictable. Perhaps your instincts will notice something we overlook." His words were not a compliment but a challenge. Ethan understood. They were testing him, seeing if a human could spot anomalies the Xylarians might dismiss as insignificant. As they moved deeper into the valley, Ethan noticed subtle disturbances in the environment. Plants that shimmered with unusual patterns, rocks that seemed unnaturally smooth, air that carried an odd vibration. He realized that this planet, while beautiful, had layers of complexity that even the Xylarians might struggle to read fully. "Captain," Ethan said quietly, careful not to sound overconfident, "there's something unusual with the energy readings over that ridge. It doesn't match natural fluctuations." He pointed toward a faint glow between two mountains. Vaylor paused, eyes narrowing. The skin on his neck shifted slightly, signaling attention. "You think a human can perceive this anomaly?" he asked. "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "But it feels different. Not dangerous, but unusual. Perhaps it's a clue." Vaylor considered this, then nodded. "We will investigate, follow closely, and stay alert." They climbed the ridge, the glowing flora underfoot casting strange shadows across their path. Ethan's senses remained on high alert. The air itself seemed alive, brushing against his skin in subtle waves, almost as if the planet were aware of their intrusion. At the ridge they found a narrow canyon, and at its center, a faint shimmer, a distortion in the air that pulsed gently. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. This was unlike anything he had ever seen. He had read about dimensional rifts, theoretical anomalies that could trap matter in folds of space, but to witness one in reality was breathtaking. Vaylor raised a hand. "This is likely the source of the disturbance. Princess Liara may have been drawn here or trapped by it. Approach with caution." Ethan studied the rift, his mind racing. He had no idea how the princess had come here, but he could feel her presence, faint but undeniable. It was as if a thread connected them, just strong enough for him to sense it but fragile enough that he could not fully grasp it. His instincts, human intuition honed through years of observation and negotiation, whispered that there was a way to retrieve her, if only he could find it. "Captain," Ethan said, "we might be able to stabilize it." The Xylarians rely on precision and technology, but sometimes intuition, human intuition, can notice patterns or balances that pure logic cannot. "If I may," Vaylor's eyes flickered with surprise, then consideration. He was testing Ethan's ability to think beyond protocol. "Proceed carefully, human, but be precise. One wrong step could be fatal." Ethan approached the rift, feeling the subtle vibrations in the air. He focused, centering himself, and slowly extended his hands. He could sense the energy shifting, responding to his presence. The rift pulsed faster, almost as if alive, resisting and then yielding in small increments. He adjusted, following the rhythm, allowing his intuition to guide him where logic alone could not. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. The Xylarians observed in tense silence, their glowing eyes tracking every motion. Then slowly, the distortion began to stabilize, forming a visible portal. Ethan took a deep breath. He could see her, Liara, suspended within the shimmer, unconscious but alive. Relief and determination surged through him. Vaylor stepped forward. "You have done what I would not have expected. Your human intuition," he paused, as if measuring the words carefully, "is remarkable." Ethan nodded, keeping his focus. "We must move quickly. If the rift collapses or shifts, she could be lost." The Xylarians worked with precision to secure Liara, following Ethan's guidance as he directed subtle adjustments to the rift's energy. The process required balance, intuition, and collaboration. For the first time, Ethan felt that human insight, empathy, observation, and instinct was not just valuable but essential, even in a world of beings far more advanced than himself. Finally, Liara was safely pulled through the portal. She gasped, blinking in confusion but unharmed. Ethan allowed himself a small sigh of relief. The Xylarians looked at him differently now, a mixture of awe and curiosity in their expressions. Captain Vaylor stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You have done something extraordinary. You risked yourself not with weapons but with understanding. Few humans could have achieved this." Ethan smiled faintly. "It wasn't just me. It's the human way. We adapt, we observe, and we act. Sometimes thinking beyond logic is necessary." Liara's eyes met his, and for a brief moment she recognized the bond that had formed. Though strangers, human and alien now shared a connection through trust and cooperation. She gave a small nod of gratitude before the Zalarians guided them back to their ships. The return journey was quiet, the ship gliding smoothly over the alien terrain. Ethan's mind was alive with reflection. Today had proven something vital, not just to the Zalarians but to himself. Humans might be underestimated in the galaxy, but their ability to think differently, to adapt, and to connect emotionally was powerful. Perhaps even powerful enough to earn the trust of an alien queen. As they landed back at the throne world, the queen awaited, her presence as commanding as ever. But this time, there was curiosity in her eyes, a hint of respect. She studied Ethan and Liara, the faint shimmer of her iridescent skin pulsing slowly, a signal he had learned to read as contemplation. "You returned her safely," the queen said, her voice calm but firm. "And you navigated an anomaly that even my most skilled advisors might have failed to manage. Explain yourself, human. How did you succeed?" Ethan met her gaze without fear. "I listened. I observed. I allowed my instincts to guide me when logic alone could not. And I trusted in the connection between living beings. Liara's safety depended not on force but understanding, and humans have a unique way of seeing what others cannot." The queen paused. Her expression was unreadable, yet Ethan sensed a shift. Perhaps for the first time she considered humans not as small, fragile creatures, but as beings capable of ingenuity, courage, and insight. The chamber's lights pulsed faintly, reflecting her thoughts in the subtle rhythms of color. "You are different," she said finally. "Not in strength, not in technology, but in thought, in determination, in the way you approach life. Humans may yet have a place in this galaxy that I underestimated." Ethan nodded. "We only ask for a chance to show it. And we are willing to help, even when the challenge seems impossible." The queen's eyes glimmered with something Ethan could not name: respect, curiosity, perhaps even hope. Today had been more than a mission. It had been proof that humans could hold their own, even among the stars. And tomorrow, he knew, would bring new challenges, new tests of human ingenuity and courage. For now, however, there was triumph in knowing that one human, with no weapons but understanding and intuition, had saved a princess and earned the first spark of trust from one of the galaxy's most formidable rulers. Ethan Cross allowed himself a brief smile. Humanity had survived countless challenges on Earth. Now, among the stars, they were beginning to prove that their greatest strength was not in their power, but in their heart, mind, and will to persevere. And he would carry that truth forward, no matter what awaited him in the days to come. After the successful rescue of Princess Liara, Ethan felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The immediate danger had passed, but he knew that his journey within the Zalarian Empire was far from over. The Queen had not yet fully trusted him, and the mysteries of this alien world were only beginning to reveal themselves. As the ship returned to the throne world, he pondered the challenges that lay ahead. He understood that this was a test not just of skill, but of patience, empathy, and intellect, the very qualities humans often underestimated in themselves. Liara, seated beside him, remained quiet. Her large, luminescent eyes observed Ethan with curiosity and wariness. He could sense her intelligence, sharp and probing, yet tempered by uncertainty. Though she had been saved, she was far from free. The Queen's concern was intense, protective, and unwavering, and Ethan suspected that any misstep could alter his position from ally to intruder. The throne room welcomed them back with the same awe-inspiring grandeur Ethan had seen on his first arrival. The walls pulsed softly with shifting colors, responding to the presence of life in subtle ways. The courtiers and advisors remained in their places, observing every movement, as if the room itself had memory and judgment. Liara was led forward and the queen rose slightly from her throne, her towering form radiating authority and curiosity. "You have returned my daughter," the queen said, her voice calm yet powerful, reverberating through the chamber. "And yet questions remain. How did she become trapped in the rift? What caused the anomaly and why has it appeared here? Explain, human." Ethan stepped forward carefully, aware that every word carried weight. Princess Liara's presence in the rift was accidental. From observation, it appears she was exploring the limits of a containment experiment, perhaps too curious for its boundaries. The rift itself seems to be a dimensional anomaly, a fold in space that captures and holds energy differently from natural matter. Humans do not fully understand such phenomena, but I observed patterns in the energy that allowed me to stabilize it. The queen's skin shimmered in a slow rhythm, her eyes narrowing slightly as if calculating probabilities. "You speak of patterns and stability," she said. "Are you suggesting that humans possess intuition beyond logic?" "I am suggesting," Ethan replied, "that humans combine logic with observation, creativity, and empathy. We see connections, sometimes invisible, that others might miss. In this case, understanding the flow of the anomaly and sensing Liara's presence allowed me to act where technology alone may have failed." The queen remained silent for a long moment, and Ethan felt the tension in the room intensify. The Xylarians valued reason above all else, yet she had paused, considering the truth in his words. He sensed the subtle shifts in the room's energy, the gentle pulses of color across the walls and the faint vibrations in the air. These were signs of thought, calculation, and perhaps the first stirrings of respect. Liara stepped closer to Ethan, her voice soft but firm. "You were able to understand what they could not see," she said. "You risked yourself, not with force but with awareness and patience." "It is remarkable," Ethan nodded. "It is in our nature to observe and act carefully. Humans survive by adapting and learning. We are not the strongest or fastest, but our minds allow us to find solutions where others may fail." The queen's eyes softened slightly, though her form still radiated authority. "Your success is undeniable," she said. "Yet the anomaly itself remains. If it appeared here, it may appear elsewhere. This could be dangerous, not just to my daughter, but to entire systems. I must know, can you aid us in understanding it?" Ethan considered the question carefully. "I can try," he said. "I have observed patterns in the anomaly, and humans are capable of thinking creatively to predict and stabilize such disturbances. But I will need access to data, instruments, and guidance from your most knowledgeable advisors. Together, we may learn enough to prevent further incidents." The queen's eyes glimmered with an unusual expression interest. "You speak with humility, yet with confidence. This is rare among humans. Very well. You shall work with my council to study the rift and its properties. But remember, failure is not an option. One miscalculation could destroy entire regions, and I will not forgive such errors." Ethan felt the familiar rush of pressure, yet he did not falter. He had faced danger before, but this was unlike anything on Earth. He was a human among aliens who could see intentions and sense energy flows. Every decision mattered, yet he understood that his value was in his intellect, empathy, and adaptability. These were tools no weapon could replace. Over the next several hours, Ethan worked closely with the Xylarian Council. They guided him through their data, sensors, and simulations of the dimensional rift. He noticed patterns they had overlooked, small fluctuations in energy that hinted at larger movements. Using human intuition combined with careful analysis, he proposed adjustments to their containment fields that improved stability. Interesting, Vaylor said quietly, observing Ethan's calculations. Your methods are unconventional yet effective. Humans think differently. Perhaps that is why you were able to save the princess. Ethan nodded, but he remained focused. Saving Liara was only the first step. Understanding the anomaly was critical. He guided the council in testing subtle changes, monitoring responses, and predicting outcomes. Slowly, the rift's behavior became more understandable. Patterns emerged, revealing that the anomaly was not static but responded to external stimuli in ways that were complex yet consistent. During a break, Liara approached Ethan once more. You are patient and you listen, she said. These qualities are rare here. Most would act immediately, relying on technology or strength. But you observe and then you act. It makes a difference. Ethan smiled faintly. Observation is often more important than action. You cannot solve every problem with force. Sometimes understanding is the key. Liara nodded, her expression thoughtful. I hope the Queen sees this. Perhaps humans are more capable than she imagined. Ethan glanced toward the throne room where the Queen observed silently. He knew that earning her trust would be a slow process. Every action, every word would be scrutinized. Yet he felt a subtle shift in her perception, a recognition that humans could contribute in meaningful ways. As the day progressed, they conducted simulations and tested theories. Ethan noticed that the rift's fluctuations were influenced by nearby energy sources, gravitational variations, and even subtle changes in atmospheric composition. He proposed a series of controlled experiments, guiding the Xylarians in adjusting environmental factors to observe the effects. The results were promising. For the first time, the anomaly's behavior was predictable enough to consider long-term management. The council members exchanged glances, their glowing forms signaling intrigue and cautious approval. Ethan realized that human intuition, combined with careful collaboration, had made a tangible difference. That evening, as the chamber's lights dimmed and the soft pulses of color slowed, the Queen approached him. Her presence was as commanding as ever, yet her eyes reflected something new, curiosity and contemplation. You have done well, she said. Not only did you rescue my daughter, but you have provided insight into the anomaly that my advisors could not achieve alone. This is valuable. Ethan bowed slightly, his voice calm. I am honored to help. Humans are not the strongest or the most advanced, but we adapt, learn, and collaborate. That is how we overcome challenges. The Queen's gaze held his for a long moment. Indeed, I have underestimated your species. Perhaps I have judged too quickly. Tell me, human, can this cooperation continue? Can we rely on your insight to prevent future disasters? Ethan felt a sense of cautious optimism. Yes, he said. If you allow collaboration, observation, and communication, humans can offer perspectives that complement your technology and logic. Together, we can face challenges that might seem insurmountable. She remained silent, then inclined her head slightly. Very well. You will continue your work with the Council, and you, Liara, will assist him as needed. Learn from one another. Observe, understand, and act carefully. This alliance may determine not only your future but that of entire systems. As Ethan returned to his quarters that night, he reflected on the events of the day. He had faced danger, uncertainty, and the scrutiny of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Yet he had proven that human insight, empathy, observation, and intuition was not only valuable but essential. In a world dominated by advanced technology and superior intellect, humans could still make a difference. He thought of Liara, her curiosity, intelligence, and courage. Together, they had bridged the gap between species, showing that collaboration could succeed where force might fail. Ethan realized that the true strength of humanity lay not in dominance, but in understanding, patience, and the willingness to act wisely. The Queen's approval was subtle, yet it marked a turning point. Ethan knew that the path ahead would be filled with challenges, but he also knew that humans had a role to play in this vast and mysterious galaxy. Their ingenuity, resilience, and capacity for empathy could influence even the most advanced civilizations. As he drifted to sleep, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The rift had been stabilized, the princess was safe, and the queen had begun to see the value of human insight. Tomorrow, they would continue their work, unraveling the mysteries of the anomaly and perhaps discovering even greater truths about the universe and humanity's place within it. For now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Humans were underestimated, yes, but underestimated humans often surprise the galaxy in ways no one could predict, and Ethan Cross intended to prove it. Ethan awoke with a sense of purpose. The previous days had been exhausting, but they had proven that humans could offer insight even in a world dominated by beings far more advanced. The Queen had begun to acknowledge his contributions, albeit subtly, and Princess Liara's presence was a constant reminder of why his work mattered. Today, however, promised to be more challenging than ever. The Queen had requested a private audience, and Ethan sensed that this meeting would test not just his skills, but the very essence of human courage and understanding. The throne room was quiet when he entered, the soft pulsing of the walls casting shifting patterns across the chamber. The Zalarians present were fewer than usual, their glowing forms silent, observing, waiting. The queen sat upon her throne, her posture commanding, yet there was an intensity in her gaze that Ethan had not seen before. It was a mixture of curiosity, frustration, and something harder to read, a hunger for understanding. "You have worked well with my counsel," the queen said, her voice smooth and deliberate. "Yet there remains a question that only you can answer." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking onto his. "Why do you humans act as you do? You risk yourselves, speak with honesty, and persist even when the odds are against you. Why?" Ethan paused, considering his words carefully. The queen did not simply ask for a factual answer. She wanted understanding, a glimpse into the human mind. "We act because we must," he said slowly. "Not because we are the strongest or because we know the outcome, but because we value life, connection, and the responsibility we hold for one another. We persist because giving up is not an option if we care for those around us. It is our nature." The queen's eyes narrowed, as if testing the truth in his voice. "And yet, your species is small, fragile, and often reckless. What makes you believe that your nature is sufficient to face challenges that could destroy entire systems?" Ethan met her gaze steadily. "Strength is not measured only in size or power. It is measured in the will to act, the courage to face uncertainty, and the ability to learn from mistakes. Humans may be fragile, but we endure, adapt, and rise again. That is how we survive. And it is why we can achieve what others might consider impossible." The queen remained silent, the room filled with an almost tangible tension. Ethan could feel the scrutiny of her advisors as well, their glowing eyes observing his every expression. He realized that this was not just a test of intellect, but of spirit. She sought to understand whether humans could be trusted not just with technology or knowledge, but with responsibility, empathy, and life itself. "You speak of responsibility and empathy," she said finally. "Yet I have seen humans destroy what they do not understand. Wars, conflicts, mistakes that cost lives. Why should I trust that your words reflect reality?" Ethan considered this carefully. The queen's doubt was reasonable. "We are flawed," he admitted. "We make mistakes and sometimes we act without foresight. But we also learn. We correct what is wrong, seek forgiveness, and strive to do better. The capacity to reflect, to grow, and to choose differently is what sets humans apart. We are not perfect, but our imperfections drive progress and understanding. That is why I stand here, offering my insight to help you, to help Princess Liara, and to prevent harm." That is what humans do when we choose to act. The Queen leaned back slightly, her glowing form pulsating with what Ethan now recognized as thought. For a long moment she said nothing. The silence in the chamber was heavy, almost oppressive, yet Ethan did not flinch. He had learned to remain calm under pressure, and now that skill served him well. "You speak boldly," she said at last, "and yet I feel something in your words. Not arrogance, but truth. Not fear, but confidence tempered with care. Perhaps humans are not as I believed. Perhaps there is a depth I had not anticipated." Ethan's heart raced, but he did not allow his relief to show. He knew that winning the Queen's confidence was a delicate process. One misstep could undo everything. "I do not expect your full trust immediately," he said. "I only offer my actions and my words as proof of our intentions. Trust must be earned through cooperation, understanding, and respect. That is true of humans, and I believe it is true of your people as well." The Queen's eyes glimmered, and for the first time, Ethan thought he saw genuine curiosity in them. "Tell me," she said, her voice softer but no less powerful, "how would you act if my daughter were in danger again? Would you risk yourself once more, even knowing the potential cost?" Ethan did not hesitate. "Yes," he said firmly, "I would act, not recklessly but with thought, observation, and determination. Life is valuable, and when someone depends on us, we must act to protect them. That is human nature. That is what I have done, and what I will continue to do if needed." The Queen's form shimmered, the color shifting in subtle ways. It was not anger nor satisfaction, but a recognition that perhaps humans possessed qualities she had not fully understood. "You speak with conviction," she said, "and yet words alone cannot assure me. Show me, human. Demonstrate what your species can do when faced with a challenge beyond logic, beyond control." Ethan nodded, understanding the unspoken demand. She was testing him not through direct action, but through the ability to influence thought, to inspire trust, and to demonstrate leadership without force. It was a challenge unlike any he had faced on Earth, yet he felt the familiar spark of determination that had carried him through countless trials. "Very well," he said. "I will act, not with weapons or strength, but with understanding and guidance. Let us observe the anomaly together, and I will show how humans can navigate uncertainty, predict patterns, and act decisively when others might hesitate." The Queen inclined her head, signaling approval. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. He had been given an extraordinary opportunity, not just to assist, but to demonstrate the unique strengths of his species. He led the Queen and her advisors back to the chamber where the rift had been contained, ready to show them the human way of thinking, observing, and acting in the face of the unknown. As they approached the rift, Ethan noticed subtle changes in its behavior. It pulsed with irregular rhythms, reacting to energy sources and environmental factors that even the Xylarians had not accounted for. "It is unstable," he said calmly, "but the fluctuations are predictable if we observe carefully. We can adjust the containment fields incrementally, responding to the rift's behavior rather than attempting to force it into submission." The Queen watched intently, her glowing eyes reflecting the pulsating energy of the anomaly. "Explain," she commanded. "How do you propose we manage this instability?" Ethan gestured to the containment panels, carefully observing the energy readings. "We must act in synchronization with the rift's natural patterns. Forceful adjustments may create further instability. Instead, we observe, respond to small changes, and guide the anomaly gradually toward equilibrium. This requires patience, precision, and attention to detail, qualities humans develop through observation and experience." Valor and the council exchanged glances, their forms glowing with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Ethan understood. They were accustomed to relying on technology, calculations, and raw power. He was proposing an approach guided by intuition, observation, and subtle understanding, the human way. The Queen stepped forward slightly. "Proceed," she commanded. "Show me this human approach." Ethan focused, adjusting the containment fields with careful precision. He monitored the rift's pulsing energy, responding to its shifts and fluctuations with subtle changes. The anomaly resisted at first, as if testing him, but gradually it began to stabilize. The energy readings leveled, and the surrounding chamber no longer vibrated with the chaotic hum it had earlier emitted. Liara watched silently, her eyes wide with admiration. "It is working," she whispered. "He can do what my people could not." The queen's eyes glimmered with fascination and a hint of disbelief. "Remarkable," she said softly. "You have acted without force, without dominance, yet the result is controlled, predictable, and safe. How can this be?" Ethan met her gaze steadily. "Because humans observe, adapt, and act with understanding. We recognize patterns, consider consequences, and adjust our actions accordingly. Strength alone does not create solutions. Wisdom, attention, and courage do." The queen remained silent, the room charged with a sense of awe. She studied Ethan for what felt like an eternity, her glowing form shifting in subtle rhythms that reflected her thoughts. For the first time, she seemed to reconsider not only her assumptions about humans but also her own instincts and judgments. "You speak truly," she said finally. "Your words, your actions, they carry weight. You have shown me a quality that my people rarely encounter in others. Perhaps humans are more than I believed." Ethan bowed slightly, though his heart raced with relief and anticipation. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only seek to act wisely and to help, using the abilities that humans possess. That is all I can offer." The queen's form shimmered softly, a subtle acknowledgement of respect and curiosity. "You have impressed me, Ethan Cross. Today, you have demonstrated that humans, though small and seemingly fragile, possess qualities that even advanced civilizations may overlook. Insight, patience, courage, and the willingness to act for the good of others, these are strengths." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. The trust he had earned was still fragile, but it was growing. The queen had begun to see the value of human insight, not just as a tool, but as a force capable of influencing outcomes in ways that technology alone could not. As he left the chamber, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The rift had been stabilized, the princess was safe, and the queen had begun to understand the unique strengths of humanity. Yet he knew the challenges were far from over. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new decisions, and new opportunities to prove that humans could make a difference in the galaxy, not through power, but through understanding, courage, and the wisdom to act rightly. For now, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Humans were underestimated, yes, but underestimated humans often change the course of events in ways no one could predict. And Ethan Cross intended to continue proving it, one choice, one action, one word at a time. Ethan awoke to a soft glow filtering through the walls of the chamber. The events of the previous days weighed heavily on him, yet a sense of purpose thrummed through his veins. The queen's cautious trust had shifted subtly, her respect for his insight evident in the way she now allowed him to speak freely in the council chambers. Princess Liara, recovering from her ordeal in the dimensional rift, moved with quiet confidence beside him. Both humans and Xylarians now seemed to realize that together, they could achieve more than they could alone. The queen had summoned him once again to the throne room, but this time her approach carried no immediate threat. Her posture was commanding, yes, but her gaze held curiosity rather than suspicion. "Ethan Cross," she said, her voice carrying its usual power, "you have proven capable of observation, action, and insight. Now, I wish to see how your species can influence the outcome of a larger challenge." Ethan nodded, feeling the familiar rush of tension and anticipation. He had learned long ago that the most critical moments demanded patience, understanding, and careful thought. He remained calm, knowing that the trust he had earned was fragile, yet growing stronger with each demonstration of human capability. Your daughter, the Queen continued, remains curious about the anomaly. Despite her recovery, she wishes to understand its properties and the potential consequences if such a rift were to appear elsewhere. We must determine how to protect not only my people, but all civilizations that may be affected. I wish to hear your guidance. Ethan stepped forward. The dimensional rift is not merely a danger, it is a phenomenon. Understanding it requires observation, collaboration, and creativity. Humans are uniquely suited for such challenges because we can think beyond established rules, notice patterns, and adjust our actions in real time. If we work together, we can prevent future incidents and potentially use this knowledge to safeguard entire systems. Liara looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the chamber's shifting light. Your approach is unlike anything my advisors have suggested, she said. They rely on formulas, on precise calculations. You rely on insight, on understanding. Ethan nodded. Logic alone is powerful, but insight allows us to respond to situations that logic cannot fully predict. The rift responded not just to physical forces, but to subtle environmental changes. By observing and adapting, we can guide it toward stability without force. That is the human approach. The Queen's eyes shimmered with faint intrigue. She had seen the results of his previous work, but hearing him explain the reasoning, the philosophy behind human action, was different. And you believe that this method, this understanding, can prevent harm on a scale that might endanger entire worlds. Yes, Ethan said firmly. With cooperation, observation, and careful action, we can stabilize the rift and predict its future behavior. Humans learn from mistakes, adjust strategies, and use both logic and intuition to guide decisions. That combination is powerful when applied thoughtfully. The Queen studied him for a long moment, her glowing skin shifting through colors that reflected thought and calculation. Very well, she said. Then you will lead a team to observe the rift's behavior across multiple locations. You will act when necessary and advise when possible. Your insight will guide our response. Ethan felt a surge of responsibility. This was the ultimate test, a moment where human qualities would be measured against the vast intelligence and power of an advanced alien empire. He realized that the outcome depended not only on his knowledge, but on his ability to inspire trust, cooperation, and decisive action. Over the following days, Ethan, Liara, and a carefully selected team of Zalarians traveled to several rift sites. Each location presented new challenges: unstable terrain, fluctuating energy patterns, and the unpredictable responses of the rifts themselves. At every step, Ethan observed, calculated, and suggested adjustments that relied not on brute force, but on understanding the rift's natural behavior. At one particularly volatile site, the rift pulsed violently, sending energy waves across the surrounding terrain. The Xylarians' instruments detected anomalies, but their standard protocols failed to stabilize the rift. Ethan stepped forward calmly. He instructed the team to adjust containment fields in subtle, incremental steps, guiding the energy rather than attempting to control it forcibly. The rift resisted at first, thrashing unpredictably, but slowly it responded to his guidance. Energy readings stabilized, the surrounding terrain ceased to vibrate, and a faint calm spread across the area. The Xylarians observed in awe, realizing that human intuition and patience had achieved what their technology alone could not. Liara's voice broke the silence. "You did it," she said softly, awe in her tone. "Your understanding, it works." Ethan nodded. "It is not only about knowledge," he said. "It is about patience, observation, and the willingness to adjust when situations change. Force cannot solve everything. Sometimes careful understanding is stronger than any weapon." The Queen observed from a nearby communication link, her eyes wide in fascination. She had witnessed the stabilization firsthand and could feel the subtle shifts in energy patterns as they settled. "Remarkable," she said. "Your species acts with courage, wisdom, and insight. I see now that humans may influence events in ways my people cannot anticipate. Perhaps I have underestimated you for too long." Ethan felt a surge of pride, tempered by the awareness of his responsibilities. He had proven that humans could act decisively, creatively, and safely in a galaxy of far more powerful beings. And yet, there was still more to do. Over the following week, Ethan guided the Zalarians in monitoring rift behavior, teaching them to observe subtle energy patterns, environmental responses, and the ways rifts reacted to external stimuli. Each success further reinforced the Queen's trust, and each challenge demonstrated the unique value of human thought and intuition. During a quiet moment, Liara approached him. "You have changed their perception of humans," she said. "They see strength not in size or force, but in thought, patience, and courage. That is extraordinary." Ethan smiled faintly. "Humans often surprise others because we combine intellect with empathy. We act not just for ourselves, but for those we care for. That perspective can make a difference, even against challenges that seem insurmountable." Liara nodded. "I hope my mother sees this clearly. Your words, your actions, they are teaching her a lesson about trust, about human capability." Ethan felt a subtle warmth. Trust was difficult to earn, especially from a ruler as formidable as the Queen, yet it was growing. And in the process, he had demonstrated that humans were not merely fragile beings, but intelligent, adaptive, and capable of influencing even the most powerful civilizations. Finally, the Queen summoned them for a formal audience. She was resplendent in her iridescent form, yet her demeanor had softened, reflecting respect and curiosity rather than suspicion. "Ethan Cross," she said, her voice steady, "you have demonstrated insight, courage, and wisdom beyond what I expected. You have guided my people, stabilized anomalies, and ensured my daughter's safety. Your words and actions have shown me the value of human thought and determination." Ethan bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only sought to act with care and understanding. Humans survive and thrive by observing, learning, and collaborating. That is the nature I have shared and the approach I have offered." The Queen regarded him silently for a moment. Then she spoke in a tone that carried both authority and admiration. "I have been mistaken in underestimating your species. Humans are not weak. They are not reckless. They are capable of great understanding, bravery, and influence. Today, you have shown that they can change the course of events, not with force, but with insight and careful action." Ethan felt a profound sense of accomplishment. It was not just recognition. It was a validation of humanity itself. Humans, often underestimated in the galaxy, had demonstrated that intellect, empathy, and courage were forces powerful enough to shape outcomes even among advanced civilizations. Liara stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "My mother now sees the truth," she said. "Humans are more capable than she believed, and it is because of you, Ethan." Ethan shook his head slightly, a humble smile on his face. "It is because of all of us. Collaboration, understanding, and trust, those are the keys. Humans have shown that, but so have your people by allowing me to work alongside you." The Queen's skin pulsed softly, reflecting her contemplation. "Then it is agreed," she said finally. "Humans will be recognized as allies, not merely as observers. Your insight and courage have earned not only my respect, but a place for your species in our deliberations and decisions. You have proven that intelligence, adaptability, and empathy are as valuable as any weapon or technology." Ethan bowed once more, deeply honored. He understood the magnitude of this moment. Trust had been earned not through force, but through action guided by insight, courage, and careful observation. The Queen had seen, firsthand, that humans possessed qualities that could influence the galaxy in profound ways. As the audience concluded, Ethan reflected on the journey. From the initial arrival in the throne room to the rescue of Princess Liara, the stabilization of the rift, and the demonstration of human understanding, every moment had been a test. Yet humans had prevailed, not through dominance but through intellect, empathy, and determination. He looked at Liara, then at the Queen, and felt a quiet satisfaction. The bond forged between humans and Xylarians would endure, built on respect, cooperation, and the shared pursuit of knowledge. Humanity had proven that even in the vast, unpredictable universe, their qualities were invaluable. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to feel the weight of what had been accomplished. A human had influenced the outcome of events that could have threatened entire worlds. A human had earned the trust of an alien queen. And most importantly, a human had shown that courage, understanding, and wisdom were forces as powerful as any technology or weapon. Ethan Cross smiled faintly. The galaxy was vast, full of unknowns, dangers, and wonders. Yet humans, small, adaptable, and capable of great insight, had a place in it. And he intended to continue proving that, one choice, one action, and one word at a time. Humanity, underestimated though it might be, had left its mark.